Hi peeps, welcome back to another Python Basics video. I'm Zen, and in this video we are going to be looking at Python and objects, specifically how to make an object and how to define the class so that the object can be made. This will hopefully be a fairly quick one, but we never know. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so Python's a lot more stricter than JavaScript when it comes to objects. Python does require us to actually create the class first. And the class can be a bit difficult to explain, but the best way of it is a class is a descriptor of an object or a group of objects. And that's the idea here, is that when you create a class of something, you're expecting to make multiple versions of that. So imagine you, like I say, back to the Sue idea. In the JavaScript one, we did the panda. Well, we wouldn't just have one panda. It'd be very lonely. So we might have 2 or 3 pandas, maybe more. And therefore, we create the class with all of the properties we talked about before: name, age, width, height, hunger levels, happiness levels, health, and then all of the methods, which are like the functions, the things that it does. So things such as eat, sleep, poop, drink, play, laugh, cry, and all that stuff. And we put all that stuff into the class definition. And then we say, right, I want a new panda. And so we basically say, create new panda. And when we do that, it takes all the information from that class and puts it into an instance of the class, which for us normal people means an object. And we can do that many, many times. And the way it's set up means that you can personalize each instance of that class or the object as we go along. Like I say, object-oriented programming is a huge, huge topic. There's no way I can give it full justice here. I'm not even planning to. I just want to give you that sort of rough overview so that when I show you how to create it, you've got an idea. Okay, so where do we start? Like I said, we have to start with the class. So the way that we do that in Python is that we use the keyword class, which is nice and straightforward. And then we have the class name. In this case, even though I did panda last time, I want to do dog. Don't ask me why, because I don't know. And then we use a colon. Okay, that's the 2.1. And this is the start of the class definition. Notice I've used a capital D on dog. If you remember from before, we did talk about this. This is a way of making it easy for people who are reading your code later on, that when they see capital D in dog, they know they're talking about a class. So in Python, space matters. Okay, so indentation that you use in Python here is really important. And so the first thing we have to do is create the initiation function, okay? And we do this with the keyword def space double underscore. This is important. Okay, then in, and you see we get init there. That's what we want, init. And then it must always, and we're going to get rid of that super because that's where it gets a little bit more confusing. You must always have a self variable. And then we're also going to add name and age. Now, self here is actually the equivalent of the word this in most instances that we used in JavaScript. Okay, so whereas in JavaScript we did this dot something, in Python we do self. And again, like I said before, indentation here matters. All right. In Python, if you misalign your indentations, then it doesn't class it as being of the same object or stuff like that. Python doesn't use braces or brackets like other programming languages do. It uses indentation instead. So make sure your indentations is done properly. I will use the tab key, which is the button above the caps lock on the left hand side of your keyboard on a British QWERTY keyboard. Okay, so I'm now going to do self dot name. Now, Notice this is a slightly different way I did it before, and the reason for that is that this is actually a slightly more advanced version, because as we're going to create this, because we've got a class, we need a way of being able to transfer its name to itself and stuff like that. So we pass the variables to it in the function. And if you're not quite sure on functions, please see my functions video. There is one definitely on JavaScript, and there will be one in Python. I think it's more or less the same. Okay, let's move on. So then we have self.age equals age, and then self, whoops, I thought I was on a new line then. Self dot hair equals long. So the reason why I've added this one in is because I wanted to show you that it doesn't always have to be values from here, values that you pass to it. You can create some internally, and that's what we've done here. So basically all dogs by default will have long hair, but when we create them we can give them a name and an age. And this is the, like I say, the initialization function. It's equivalent to the constructor function that you might see in other languages. Now I'm going to create another function, and to do that I'm going to do Shift and Tab to jump back. Notice that it is at the same line as the initialization function. Okay, and so I'm going to do def bark, and again we have to pass over the value self colon, and then, by the way, these horizontal spaces, these ones here, or vertical breaks, are not compulsory. I do it because it makes it easier for me to see it. Okay, and I'm just going to do print woof. Okay, and now to come out of the whole class definition, all you've got to do is, like I say, is to get rid of the indent to bring you back to the same level as class. Okay, so that's why the indents are important. They create the areas, the code blocks. All right, so because this print is inside, indented inside here, it is classed as being part of this function. Because these three lines are indented from this one, they are classed as being part of this initialization function. And because they are all inside the class dog, all of these lines of code are considered to be part of this class definition. Okay, so now we have Mr. Doggy, okay, or at least the definition of doggy. What we need to do is to create a new dog. So we can do Fred, because look, Fred's a dude, man, just deal with it. Okay, so Fred equals dog. Okay, so what we're doing, we're basically sort of calling the class and sending it to Fred. So Fred becomes a reference to that calling. And so here we're going to pass the values. Notice we don't need to worry about the self, that sort of is implied. Okay, so dog's name's Fred, and he's going to be 5 years old. And we'll create another dog because, you know, dogs need friends. Okay, so let's do tiny equals dog tiny, and tiny is 12. So let's see if this works. So now we can do print Fred dot age, and let's see, print type Fred. See what comes up on that one. And then to prove that you know, both Fred and Tiny exist, we're going to do tiny dot bark, and then print, oops, don't forget the open and closing parentheses, and then we're also going to do print tiny dot age, and then just to prove that again tiny hasn't overridden Fred, we're going to do print Fred.age again. Okay, so hopefully we've got that right. So let's see what happens. So first thing I'm going to do is save it, and then I'm going to open up the terminal, and we can see that I haven't got something set up correctly because my PowerShell has come up as opposed to. Alright, so that's me do I want it to do, so I'm going to allow that to happen. So sometimes that happens. So allow that to happen. I'm going to close this. Let's try again, new terminal. Yep, there we go. So we've got it. I'm on the S drive now, but it doesn't matter. So I'm in sites, so I need to go into learning, and then into Python. Okay, and then I should just run Python test.py, and let's see what comes up. So here we go. So we start off with 5, and let's just check this against the code. So we created Fred with the age of 5, and we printed Fred's age, which is 5. We then printed type of Fred, and it came out as class as main dog. Okay, so this is telling us it is a class definition. Okay, it is an object, and it is an object made from dog. Okay, we then got Tiny to bark, and we've got Woof come up. We then printed Tiny's age, and Tiny we set up as 12, and then we printed Fred's age to prove that Tiny hasn't overwritten Fred, and we get 5 again there. So that's it. Actually a lot faster than I thought it would be. Please understand I've done the tiniest amount here on showing you how to use an object in Python, but this is a good starting point for you to sort of jump off and learn on your own. As always, I really hope this has been useful. Don't forget to put comments, questions below. You know what the other buttons do. It's the end of this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm Zen, signing out.